Welcome to Stormwatch by GreyNoise Intelligence. Each week, we drop the latest info on what's happening at GreyNoise and Census, take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics. Sometimes they're a little adjacent too, like today, and toss out some expert opinions and drop the occasional conspiracy theory. Kimber, we need to know those. Today, we are starting with a discussion about the Department of Justice's new Justice AI initiative. That sounds like a superhero thing. AI is used in government in general, and just how quickly AI has made things completely worse in academia and science and kind of life in general. We then turn our sights to whether the NVD is dead or just pining for the fjords, and an extra special look at the bleak future for vulnerability triage and dissemination. And our Tool Time segment features a mini splainer about certificate transparency logs and a look at some pretty cool new tech by Let's Encrypt. Before we get into everything else, I just want to mention that if you head over to stormwatch.ing, though URL will be up in a second, you can sign up to get the accompanying newsletter for the pod, which is cool. And we may have a special thing to talk about next week as well. So sign up and you may be one of the first to get some things. You're going to see that Glenn is not here. And I'm going to ask Emily, since Emily brought a friend today. Emily, would you like to introduce your Census co-host?
Yeah, so I'm super excited that Himija is joining us. Himija is a researcher on our team at Census. And in addition to like all the interesting things she does like internally, Himija is one of the leads for our rapid response program at Census. So she, in terms of vulnerabilities, vulnerability intelligence, understanding the threat landscape, like she's the go-to person. So I'm super excited to have her joining. Thanks for being willing to come on and hang out with us, Himija.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
A very brave soul, a very brave soul. So, Kimber, good morning, because I start with you always. Kimber, good morning. And if you could create, oh wait, hold on. I need to do this. I got some background music here. Yeah.
Background music bit.
Yeah, I gotta have that. There we go. So if you could create a new holiday, anything you want, what would it be, and how would we all have to celebrate it?
See, I think the problem is creating a new holiday because there's like holidays for all of the things already by and large, but I feel like some sort of like celebration of the moon is what first came to mind for me. Like, I think that we should really be hyping the equinox a lot more. Like, you know, it's happening. It feels good. You can feel the spring in the air. Well, in certain parts of the country. So I think that like we should be celebrating the equinoxes more.
And what's one thing that we could do to celebrate that?
Oh, a feast, obviously.
Okay, feast. Very cool. All right. Actually, Himija, I'm going to do you next, and I'll get Emily last. The same question: if you could create a new holiday, what would it be, and how would we celebrate it?
I would 100% want a national glow-in-the-dark day. I love glow-in-the-dark things, even though they're probably toxic and shortening my lifespan, but it's fine. It's worth it. I want a glow-in-the-dark day because I think it would be so funny to have people like wearing glow-in-the-dark things and then going around in daylight and you wouldn't be able to see it until someone shuts the lights off, you know, and then it's like, whoa, surprise. So largely useless, but I need it.
I like that one, actually. I don't think everything is toxic that's glow in the dark. You got like there's like bugs, right? You got the fireflies, they glow in the dark. And you got like yeah, and the bioluminescence ones. So we could just you know take the bioluminescence from like all the living things, and then
take the plankton.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, Emily, same question goes for you. Holidays, how?
I feel so comparatively uncreative. So my first thought was like IT security and ops appreciation day, which I know is really boring, but also like these are the folks who largely like they're not really like front and center in their orgs typically. Like if they're doing things well, like you kind of don't notice what they're doing in many ways. Like there's lots of caveats, but I would love to just kind of be more aware of like all the work that goes on behind the scenes, like keeping the lights on, keeping things secure. Like I think a lot of folks in other parts of businesses don't fully understand that. So appreciating that. And I would love to like give folks on like in a different part of the business the pager for a day and let them kind of see the chaos
That's
and
the
give it to the
holiday
responders, the
tradition.
IT. Yeah, like let them take some time off. Although that
Okay.
would probably create a larger mess to be.
I like
Well,
mayhem.
anyway,
You know,
Yeah.
it's a mayhem day.
I'm going to hit up Overwatch before I give mine. Meet your hero day. Spend the day with any person of your choosing, dead or alive. let's pretend this could work. Don't get wrapped up in the details. Okay. Okay. I don't know. I got wrapped up in the details in my head on that one. I'm just
I'm thinking it's like second Halloween, where like if
okay.
you want to meet your heroes, like somebody's got to dress up like a hero, so all day you're just meeting your heroes.
that's cool. That would work.
Right?
That would work.
So mine, and I'm going to turn this music off now because it was supposed to be music and it's not music. There we go. I want to have the National Kimchi Celebration Day. But the celebration part is you have to put kimchi and eat it with everything that day.
Have you ever made your own kimchi?
Yep,
It's such a fun process.
it is. We actually do a lot of pickling and other things like that around here too. Being in the middle of nowhere, you kind of have to do some of that. So I'm going to bring up all the things like we normally do here. We have a podcast, and you can also watch us on demand. Press the like button, hit the subscribe, leave comments, share, do all the things because that gets the word out about us in a lot better way than us just talking and no one else like hearing us out there. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to also start us off with the first topic of the day, which is about AI. And like we went through some of the topics and looked at a bunch of the things. And while this isn't all just a completely cybersecurity type thing, it is partially that. And we all had strong opinions and we all had strong feels. And that seemed like a really good way for us to kind of do some of that. So if you weren't familiar with what happened, the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, gave remarks at the University of Oxford on the promise and peril of AI. I did like the name of her talk; that was pretty great. You can grab the URLs and go watch all the things and listen to all the things that are out there. I just wanted to read a couple excerpts from what she had put up. So one of the things is every new technology is a double-edged sword, but AI may be the sharpest blade yet. She writes really well. It has the potential to be an indispensable tool to help identify, disrupt, and deter criminals, terrorists, and hostile nation states from doing us harm. So far, we've just scratched the surface of how AI can strengthen the Justice Department's work, but we've already deployed AI, and we've already deployed AI. We're just brand new doing this, and they've already done it. The government moved pretty fast, I guess, to classify and trace the source of opioids and other drugs. Interesting. To help triage and understand more than 1 million tips submitted to the FBI by the public every year, and to synthesize huge volumes of evidence collected in some of our most significant cases, including January 6th. For all the promise it offers, AI is also accelerating risks to our collective security. We know it has the potential to amplify existing biases and discriminatory practices. It can expedite the creation of harmful content, including child sexual abuse material. It can arm nation states with tools to pursue digital authoritarianism, accelerate the speed of disinformation and repression. And we've already seen that it can lower the barriers to entry for criminals. We've actually talked about that on a few of them. There's also election security issues. And there are some cautionary tales, which I won't read the rest of it. Just basically summarize, the upcoming elections, AI is going to be used to radicalize and misinform. And I think we're all aware that there was some shenanigans done with AI in terms of like fake voices and fake videos, et cetera, during the primary season that we're still in the middle of, believe it or not. So it's a little daunting. And I'm going to pull back from the slides for a second because I wanted to get everybody else's opinions about and thoughts on the talk and the uses of government like that you read with AI. So I'm going to start with Emily on this one because like Emily said, she had some deep feels this morning on this one.
Yeah. So this is very largely concerning to me, right? I appreciate that in this discussion, like she kind of calls out the perils here, right? Like some of the risks that we face by using AI and all of these different systems. But the thing that worries me a lot and has for a very long time, like coming from the data world, we talk a lot about in data science, like garbage in, garbage out, right? Like if you put garbage input into a model, whether you're training or whether you're just having it, go in some unsupervised model and you want to get outputs, you can't expect the data if it doesn't match the population characteristics, if it's not a great sample, if there are integrity issues, you can't expect reasonable output, right? But much in the same way that that's true, I think also bias in, bias out is a huge problem. And so I worry a lot and have for a while, right, about, when we're taking data from a society that is biased, that has inequity, and we're feeding that to models that, we've been doing this for years, right, with like credit risk and loans and housing and education, like the healthcare. There's lots of disciplines where this has already been a thing, insurance. My fear is that with kind of this proliferation of AI, this is only going to get amplified. And I'm really grateful to the researchers out there who are actually studying AI harm and risk and like understanding kind of the abuse perspective, because I don't know, much like a lot of other technologies, right? Like this is outpacing legislation, policy, our understanding of kind of what are the perils, right? So I'm really glad that there are folks focused on this. I'm very concerned. I'm worried because now, predictive policing has been a thing for a long time. Now we're seeing like more federal agencies adopting these tools, and I'm cautious. I'm hesitant.
Other thoughts? Jump in, everybody.
Yeah, I think there was a part of this speech where she brings up the concept of horse law, and there's this judge back in the 90s that talked about the fact that you can't have, I'm super paraphrasing here, but you can't have horse law. Like horses, they're effectively like tools. They are technology in a strange way because you use them to get around. Like they're highly unpredictable. They're all of these things, and you couldn't necessarily like outlaw horses. And I think this kind of gives us some insight as to how we're going to be looking at legislation of AI, because I think a lot of people are starting to think like, why are we not outlawing this? Or why are we not saying what people can and can't use it for? And so we get some insight in this idea where she brings up horse law, where she's like, you can use AI to accomplish many things, but where it becomes a concern of the Justice Department is like using AI to discriminate, using AI as a tool to commit law. And like that's where my brain has been on it, is like, how do you regulate like what AI can be used for unless you are deeply understanding like how AI works? Because I can recognize the patterns. We've talked about this before on this podcast, like the recognizability of the patterns. And if you keep those in mind, like how do you write legislation for that sort of thing? Like how do you talk about a crime that has been committed using AI? Like how do you prove that the intent was to discriminate with the usage of AI? I'm so interested in this topic. So this is a good read.
I just want to, sorry, this just made me think of something. So this kind of makes me wonder, right? Like all of these organizations that have been using machine learning models for years to, again, decide your creditworthiness or like other things like that. Are we like, those are certainly biased. Those are certainly,
right.
So like, are we going to go back and like retroactively kind of start looking at these things too? Because I would argue that those would fall under discrimination as well in many cases.
Well, it's so crazy to me because like we use machine learning at GreyNoise to cluster payloads, because like that's what this stuff is, right? Is pattern recognition at a massive scale. Like the more patterns that you put in, the better the recognition like goes, more or less, unless you were putting in straight garbage, in which case then everybody's screwed. So I think a lot about what are we missing? And like, is it something worthwhile? And that's kind of how I rein myself in with all of it, is like, okay, this is very cool, like what we're surfacing given the information that we do have, but what are we missing? And is that data set interesting in a different way? Like, this is kind of the normalized trend, I guess. And the stuff that is not being surfaced as much, like, is that the really radical stuff? Or I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the underlying problem that I see with AI more than any technology, really anecdotally, is that we use AI as a replacement for thinking, without understanding how it works, right? It's a black box in a lot of cases. And just like any mathematical model, how do you know its limitations or its biases without understanding how it works? And so it's encouraging to see, you know, this recognition of like the perils of AI, but it's, to me, it's, we need a little bit more. To your point, Kimber, like what's missing? What's the assurance that, you know, the technical understanding of the model will be there, and that this will be used as a tool, right? Not as a rubber stamp on a decision or a decision-making kind of entity.
Right. I like the use case of AI as like a massive time saver, but I do think about that a lot, how it's just a replacement for thinking. Because it's doing like a human process. Like, we're all very good like pattern matchers, and so we're very like naturally fast at this. We have like a very natural understanding of like how data is structured and all of that, so anomalies stand out a lot more. And I'm so glad to see that like the legally we're thinking about these things, but I don't think that there's enough recognition of that, like the transparency. Like, I can tell you how I intuitively know when the vibes are bad on data. Like, if you really press me on it, like I can tell you why the data vibes are bad, but like an AI couldn't.
Yeah. And I feel like kind of what you're saying in terms of using it as a tool versus using it as the sole decision maker, like both of you are kind of touching on that, I think is so, so important. Because we can't ask it essentially like, here, tell me how you arrived at this conclusion. Like, that's just not quite how that works. And I strongly suspect kind of this democratization of these tools is going to get into the hands of folks further and further from kind of having that intuition about the data and understanding the kind of nuances of things. And so that sort of, I don't know, that worries me.
This reminded me, like, I am so curious what's going to happen when people get tired of how genericized everything is, because you can already see it happening. Like, you can see that like everything's just getting a little bit more bland, like even in the unhinged like comment section that you know is bot generated, like it's just getting very repetitive and bland and all of these things. So I'm wondering, like, will there be like this boom of different models that are trained on different like sections of the internet or something like that? And like, is that where we'll see some legislation come in, like what you can train AI patterning based on?
And so you mentioned legislation a couple times, and I like that you went there with that, because the thing that I noticed from it was within like days after the New Hampshire deep fake audio of Biden was being played, telling people to not show up or whatever, that we actually had new rules in place. So just like, boom, it's already there. You can't use AI to do that. And like, that was no delay in getting rules up about that. And I'm wondering if they're going to be able to react as quickly when other major problems come up. But the one thing that we've all been doing, we've all been committing a cardinal sin of this particular topic, which is like, we've lumped AI into generative stuff just now. We've all done it. We all just did it. And I find that interesting, because people have been using AI for a very long time. One of the earliest things of it has been to recognize numbers so that banks could process checks faster, right? Like that was one of the original uses of it. And there's a lot of cases like we pile our show audio through AI to get a transcript. That's not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but it's way better than me typing that transcript. It's not going to happen. And there's a lot of other like dumb or I think you pointed it out, camera, like time saving, manual labor saving, in a good way. Like that's not like writing a thesis for you. It's, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But it's, taking care of some of that mundane tasks. It's in this generative capacity.
Well,
yeah.
Wait,
okay.
I want to call that out for a second, because those mundane tasks, that's been brought up in just this whole like AI ethics discussion. The big blanket of the AI ethics discussion is that taking a job away from somebody who is entering the workforce, is junior, is lower income, is all of these different things. I mean, it's even come up in like jobs for people who are maybe like disabled and can't do other jobs. Like, it is AI taking AI, quote unquote. Like before, you'd have to have people working to verify those numbers, or we would hire, an intern to do some transcribing or something like that. Like, is it good that those things are going away?
Well, actually, I want to give him and Emily a chance to respond, and like I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I don't care. So there's already been like layoffs. We talked about layoffs in the past couple of ones because that's a major thing impacting our industry. And there's this little thing coming out soon, like for everyone to be able to use if you got enough coin, which is Microsoft Copilot for security. And our org is going to get rid of their senior staff and just hire a bunch of junior people, thinking that this thing is going to solve all their security problems. And they don't need smart people around anymore.
I think it's the opposite. But
oh, really?
Yeah,
well, no, elaborate. Oh, all of you elaborate. I want to hear that.
Emily, what's your take?
No, I feel like I cut you off. Do you want to?
No, I've been I can rant about that. It's not AI replaces juniors. It does not replace seniors, because the seniors have the knowledge to know when the AI is bullshitting.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Exactly. 100%.
So people are going to use it to do things like transcribe or review things and get stuff into the automation systems that they would have had a junior analyst maybe do from the beginning, or it's going to write a threat report that you might have delegated out to one of the junior folks to take all the info and then make that piece or whatever.
I mean, we can even see this play out in our own research department, where we could be hiring junior analysts to look at payloads all day, but instead we have a tool that replaces a junior analyst. I think about this all the time.
It actually is replaced. Like we have done some back of the napkin math, and it's actually replaced three junior analysts.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's amazing. That's awesome. It will definitely lead to the accelerationism of threat intelligence. Love that, but also hate that.
Well, that raises the question then, right? Like, so if you're somebody, let's say you're in undergrad right now, you're about to graduate, or maybe you just started undergrad, and I imagine the landscape's going to look very different in the next few years. How do you get a job in, so someone just commented, how long does that last? Eventually the senior will retire or move on, and then you don't have new educated juniors to replace them. So therein lies the problem. You don't essentially have an internal pipeline anymore. And I would argue maybe less of an external pipeline as well, because it becomes less attractive of a career path. And so, yeah, I worry about this a non-trivial amount as well.
I worry about it so much, but I do like this point in the comments about the creation of new roles, like VCR repair. That's a really good example, because largely like those people have all kind of bleak, but died off, or found new things to do. And like, I'm so curious what people will like. Are more people going to be getting into reversing? Because that's where there's a very like solid skills gap in the industry. I feel like, like just
is
reversing.
There an AI for that?
Right? Like, is AI doing that yet?
Yeah, it actually there's entire automated firmware reversing and vulnerability assessment and exploit creation. Yeah,
but how good is it? How do you have to have the skills to know if the output is actually, to Kipper's point, is it legit?
So for some of those, if you can create 1 million exploits, and only one has to work, does it matter?
Depends on what your resources are.
This is true.
I love this debate.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to extend the debate a little bit. My dream of a 45-minute episode is never going to happen, and it's actually all my fault. That's all right. The one thing to extend this a little bit more is there've been some interesting things in academia in the past couple of weeks, and the one because I scan and read pretty much everything on the internet if I can, and there was a Science Direct paper that was put up. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. A week and a half ago. And one thing that was really funny about it, and it got a lot of our attention, was because but kind of buried down, I think it was like the fourth or fifth paragraph. The paragraph starts off with, "Certainly, here is a possible introduction for your topic." And it's quite obvious that that's, if anyone has ever used any of the GPTs out there, that's what you get when you talk to some of the GPs. So this was completely generated by them. The thing is, and I'm not faulting them for doing this, because the four, I think it was the four folks that wrote this paper, English is not their first language, then they're not US citizens. And so being able to have something help you try to create English text that other people will be able to read, and also if that isn't your first language and you're not very good at that language, it's really hard to do that work. I've actually tried doing it in reverse for other languages on my own. And so I don't fault them for that, but it made it past peer review. Like, this paper got out and got published in a journal. It got through peer review. And I with regard to peer review, one that was out just this week. And this is an archive paper, the link's up there. And so now we have, like, this is the areas of study that AI has created just in the past 2 years or whatever, has been just hilarious to me. And the pace at which you're doing it. A bunch of researchers in AI analyzed a bunch of AI papers, and they're actually finding, and to your point, Kimber, like, there's a lot of noticeable patterns and repetitions and certain words they've caught on to and latched onto when they create the text, create the text, when they randomly generate the text, based upon like the frequency usage or whatever. That's why they're in there. And this one's actually finding words like commendable and innovative and meticulous and versatile and notable and intricate. And that's just one of the examples. They all just like jumped up in usage frequency and AI papers, which their posit, that means that there is the use of AI to actually write those papers for all of those things.
Emily, we're brushing up on dead internet.
We are. Oh,
Yep.
I do need to put this up too. And was the peer review also through AI? And so that's also a thing. I didn't want to overwhelm the AI discussion with that, but that is a whole other thing happening right now, where people are absolutely they're having like, someone will get tasked with being reviewer number 1 and 2, and reviewer number 2 is like, more than often than not now, just feeding the paper to one of the AIs, and it's saying come up with 10 negative comments about the thing. And it's a really, academia is a really bad place right now in terms of AI and the content being put there. So this is insane. Like, so like that dead internet, could you once more explain the dead internet, because we have a lot of new viewers and listeners today?
So the TLDR of the dead internet is that basically at some point in the not too distant future, or past rather, the internet is just bots. Like, it's all inorganic, kind of not real human interaction. It's all just bot activity. If you look at the YouTube comments section, if you look at some subreddits, you would probably be very inclined to think this is true. I'll reserve judgment on it, but that's kind of the notion, that most of the activity there is kind of like is bot driven on the internet.
It's been my observation that about every other new article posted to Medium, like, I hate Medium, so I study it because I want to try to bury it. I can't stand it. And every other article now posted there is AI generated.
Are they good though?
No. Oh,
so
no.
You can tell.
Yeah.
I think that's like my one consolation, is that it's not good, and you can usually tell when something is a bot. Usually, images and videos get harder.
But we're extremely online, right?
This gets into the whole like disinformation, misinformation piece too. Like, how do you develop the skills if you are not chronically online to be able to actually sort of understand what is real organic writing or text or material versus something that is synthetic? How do you do that?
Oh, so like instead of having, well, in addition to having cybersecurity training, we're going to start having AI recognition training.
Or even just sort of, I mean, maybe not even AI specific. Like, I feel like over the last few years, this has become a more common thing. I feel like I've seen like journalism classes around this, like being able to identify and kind of like source your material better in the face of like disinformation that's actively created to kind of like cause harm or things like that. So like I don't know if it's even just AI, like, but I think that certainly changes the stakes a little bit.
I love the word organic and like bringing it back to that. I think that's like, how do you find organic, like real stuff? Man,
What do you even define as organic real stuff? I mean, is it human created?
human created from the earth.
So have any of you all, and folks that are like, by the way, if you're not actually in the comment section and type in furiously in whatever platform you're watching and listening us on, you should, because there's epic conversation going on there, some super intelligent things being said, and I can't put them all to the screen and I can't read them all. So please go look at those because you guys are doing a great job.
Are they AI?
Ooh,
Sorry.
I do know Lewis is. So the have any of you used the Claude 3 Pro version?
No.
Not that version, no.
Okay. Because Kimber and I think we might have to do a test over the next couple of weeks. I will basically throw some things your way that either I have written or that I have had Claude 3 write. And I'm not going to tell you which one, and the context will be different. And I want to see if you can pick up on it, because Claude 3 is scary good at, if you give it the right prompt, like not overly complex, but the right prompt, it can make very natural sounding text. And it doesn't do the it doesn't do all the usual dumb stuff that you read from every other GPT, is inserting all those common phrases, word, etc. that's out there. It's actually pretty good.
Does it vary its tokenisms? Like, is it using different adjectives? Is it?
It is. No, it actually does. It does a phenomenal job. You have to give it some parameters to do that. But like it's scary. Like, and I'm only bringing it up because we're not going to be able to recognize this stuff soon. We really aren't.
I guarantee you, I will always recognize it. And
Okay.
if not, give me like a 2-week buffer period.
Okay. Yeah. No, fair. Very fair.
And then I'll recognize it. I'll
All
know.
right.
No, I'm convinced.
Okay. Before we get off the AI topic, this is breaking news, whatever breaking news in cyber means. This is breaking news this morning, and this is another thing that we're going to get, and we've already ragged on all the vendors in cyber that are going to slap the AI sticker on everything, like they do everything all the time for everything that's new everywhere. This was the investment advisors had to pay $400,000 to settle AI washing charges. So basically, they slapped an AI sticker onto whatever services that they were selling, and it turns out that there were no services that all baked that used AI in any way, shape, or form. And there are a number of other like generation services right now that are doing the same mechanical Turk stuff that's been done for the past decade or so, which is there's just a bunch of like slave labor, underpaid and sometimes actually enslaved humans doing the actual work as well. So I'm just curious, like, have you come across anything that you've like a service you've used that claims to have AI working in the background that actually isn't AI?
Yes. I'm so happy this exists. This is one of my pet peeves, and it has been for years, even back when we called it machine learning back in my day.
Okay.
Or even when we were like computational statistics, but nobody put that on a marketing site. Yes, I hate this. I hate it so, so much. People are like, oh, we're using machine learning. And it's like, just like, yes, sure, linear regression, sure, nested if statements. Like, please stop saying that. Please stop using these phrases, because that's not really what they mean. Stop it. Stop it. If you're listening, if you're in a marketing department, stop putting AI on your marketing page. Please, please.
Hey, does she blow up like this a lot at work?
Emily is a cool cucumber in a bowl of hot sauce. That's what I like to call her. But in this case, I totally think the hot sauce is warranted, because I think my guess is that putting buzzwords like this into marketing documents feels harmless, But really, it contributes to this misinformation problem that we're talking about, like what is AI and misattributing it to these other technologies. And so I am very glad. I think this will set a really good precedent for sure.
Wow. I'm afraid to talk about the next topic now.
That's a spicier topic for her than thrunting is.
Yeah.
No, my
Yeah.
two, like, well, throw in a pie chart and you've effectively killed me.
Oh,
we are we're gonna move into another controversial topic that I don't know if I should have done this now. So we're trying to figure out whether the National Vulnerability Database (NVD) is pining for the fjords or just not completely dead yet. That's what we're trying to figure out in this particular discussion now. There was a great Resilient Cyber had a really cool I want to say blog, but it's on Substack, so it's a newsletter, which is, I don't know, whatever. They took one of the famous XKCDs and they kind of showed a bunch of stuff there, like, and normally where it was like that one tiny little library that everything relies on that's maintained by some guy in a cave. It's NVD is sort of like that thing that shores up everything in vulnerability stuff.
NVD standing for National Vulnerability Database.
Yeah, I mean, I did say that for the parrot part, but that's okay. And it's been a bit of a problem of late, and I'm just gonna read from Jerry Gamblin. Jerry's great. I was over at Cisco, does great data science work, and he's been doing it before he got at Cisco too. And so he was looking into delays and we have to talk about where this discussion is happening too. We have to talk about this. So this vulnerability looked into the delays in processing vulnerabilities at NVD. Currently, there's a significant backlog. They've yet to address nearly 2,500 CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exposures, accounting for 40% of all CVEs released this year. Anyone that's had to do any kind of analysis or triage on vulnerabilities knows this is the case too, because you're missing like some key elements from the NVD stuff. And if they just focus on the period starting on February 15th, when they posted a notice about the issue, which I will go to in a second, the situation appears even more critical. Since that date, they've only managed to process 59 CVEs. And this means that there's an outstanding backlog of over 2,150 CVEs, making it more than 90% of all the CVEs published in that time frame. And this is the notice. And NIST is currently working to establish a consortium to address challenges in the NVD program. Your call is important to us is basically what they just said here is for that one. And before we go into other parts of the NVD, I want to bring it back down. Have any of you noticed the lack of data in NVD of late?
Yeah. So my job is ingesting NVD CPEs on almost a daily basis and associating them with CVEs, and with the drop off, it's like the number of things that have null data or they only have a CVSS score has really gone up. The main way that it's been affecting me is I kind of have to go down the rabbit hole of other news articles and try and like fill in the gaps myself. So I'm feeling very much like I took NVD for granted.
How about you? Well, anybody else have any? Well, Kimber, you are probably feeling it because because we do try to use that data for the API stuff that we do.
Yeah, I think it may have some impacts soon.
I have a couple of rants in this space. So one is the quality of the NVD analyses has been suspect for a little while now, and I've
noticed that probably more than anything. Like the quality has just
that's one. The other one is, and before I get to some other parts of this, actually I'm gonna show the next screen because I do want there's a second notice on the same feeds page, which is, and this has been a notice that's been up for about a year and a half now. Like they've been threatening to get rid of their JSON feeds. I'm not gonna read it word for word, but they have been threatening to get rid of the JSON feeds for a while now, and they are going to get rid of them later. Maybe, I mean, they're rethinking everything so that everything this. And I mentioned that to Imogen yesterday, and like your eyes went like, what? Because like, yeah, I'm with you. Like those JSON feeds are glorious because it's all the stuff in one big thing, and you have to. It's a pain to get things otherwise. Their API sucks. Their API server sucks. I have an API caching proxy that I use because I look at CVE data all the time too, and I'm not gonna wait for their API will either time out or it takes 30 seconds sometimes to look up a single CVE, and you can only make so many calls per minute because it's an API and it's rate limited. And I don't know, like all the decisions that they seem to have been making lately are putting defenders at a real risk of not being able to do the work, the critical work that they need to go do. And I guess one of my questions to everybody here is, and this is also for the comment folks, like, is it time to just, and like I'm gonna get yelled at for this one big time by everybody in the community. Is it time to just like abandon this whole like let's try to triage vulnerabilities and just try to patch, like come up with a way to patch everything all the time?
Hmm. That's such a question. I don't. That's such like a spicy question because if you start looking into, okay, let me backtrack for a second there. The reason that this is part of NIST is because there's like standardizations on which things are vulnerabilities. I think that's important. Like CPEs, those sort of things are important. However, we're going to see in the private market alternatives emerge. There's already a solid open source, but I mean, other countries have vulnerability databases. Like you need to have vulnerability databases so that you
Well,
know, like
Japan's is just a mirror of NVD though. So I just said it as an example. A couple of them just
true.
mirror NVD.
China's is wonky. People think half of it is fake.
And so from one of our virtual co-hosts, patch everything is hard. You can do it with infinite time. Triage gets you a priority list. Well, now we can't rely on the triager, right? And like the thing is, like there's been a lot of things that have been built upon the fact that there was a certain prescribed amount of time people estimated, guesstimated, analyzed that, and this was going to do the analysis and have the analysis ready. Things like EPSS, which is a prediction score thing that is getting better all the time, and it's helping orgs understand whether someone's going to get exploited or not. That's a vital component of EPSS, and there's a couple other scoring systems that it's a vital point too. But to Kimber's point, and I may throw out to everybody too, like so you've got the GitHub security advisory database, you've got Google's OSV, which is mostly open source software. You've got a couple of like third-party firms. I'm not going to mention them because they're third-party firms and they cost a lot of money to have access to the data. That also manage like basically intake vulnerabilities, and they don't get CVE records. If NIST doesn't get its act together, don't we lose a common vernacular that we all trade information around with and we discuss things with, and we basically have the same set of facts that our vulnerability universe works around? And what happens when we lose that? Like, is this just an open season for attackers now to be able to go do whatever they want to do if NIST can't get its act together?
No, I don't think it's like an open season for attackers. I think it's just the amount at which we can truly understand like how quote unquote bad things are, it gets complicated because like Himojo was saying, that process of like understanding the vulnerability becomes slower. Like you're looking up news articles and things to figure out like what the attack vectors are, right? Stuff like that. So it slows down the industry, I think, to not have this standardized language because you're in that sort of zone of unknown when the news emerges and you're trying to piece together all of the information. Whereas if the CVE is just validated, then you kind of have that information already, I guess.
So as a counter to this, to kind of borrow from like the concept of reliability engineering, it does feel a bit like we have put all our eggs in the NIST basket, which we're now seeing. Like, yes, I agree that like having that common language and common vernacular to like actually talk about these things is incredibly useful. But it also does kind of make me wonder, about the dangers of that, right? Like, how can we make these systems a little bit more robust? Like our intake, for us, right? Like, how can we diversify our sources of information so that when something like this happens in the future, if it happens in the future, I don't know, we could be a little bit more resilient to it and have a little bit less of a hard time trying to figure out what do we do next. But yeah, I agree. Like, I think this is concerning.
So before we progress into this, I do need to call out the fact that I didn't miss this topic. I almost missed it because it's happening on the toxic toxic positivity platform known as LinkedIn. And why on earth is this really important discussion happening on one of the most vapid and shallow sites on the internet? Like, why? Why is that happening there?
Where else are people talking? Where is the town square anymore? Because it's certainly not on X. I don't think Mastodon necessarily. I mean, there is some discussion of it on Mastodon that I've seen, but I feel like a lot of InfoSec people have gravitated toward LinkedIn, particularly people in this sort of circle where like vulnerabilities and CVEs are kind of like what we do. I think a lot of people are on LinkedIn now, and that's kind of where the conversation is happening. But it is really odd to me. It's very strange.
I'm going to solely blame Patrick Garrity for this one.
Yeah.
Shout out to the
Oh,
homies.
Patrick. Oh, Patrick. No.
But he is a prolific LinkedIn human, and his posts are honestly like extremely valuable. I don't know. Big fan. Hey!
Hey. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can show it to him. Yeah, hey, Patrick. The one thing I wanted to also toss into the conversation is like it isn't all NVD's fault. And there's two things I wanted to bring up. One is this, which is a graph I have up, so please look at this stuff later or whatever. So and Todd, you will anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the Linux folks, they're their own CNA now, certified network, whatever. And the A could stand for a lot of things when it comes to Linux stuff. Anyway, so the number of CVE submissions, and they just started to do this, that they are releasing on their own, and they just started it this year. And this, like, the graph starts on February 20th. Since February 20th, they have released almost 500, or they submitted 500 CVEs. And I went through 200 of them. I couldn't stand going through anymore. And they're garbage. Like, they're not CVEs. Like, okay, in my not so humble opinion, they don't rise to the threshold of CVE. And how are we supposed to ask NIST, who got staffed for a certain number of things, to deal with this kind of onslaught? And I want to pile on with that one. There was a rant by the Curl folks a month or two ago, basically predicting like a doom scenario, which is like a whole bunch of, no offense, bug bounty people using AI to go find bugs in software to try to say, hey, there's a CV here when there's really not a CV here. We haven't reached that point yet with AI. I didn't just try to make it an AI tie-in. I think that's a real possibility. AI can analyze code bases. AI is pretty good at finding some kinds of bugs in bases, and it will be used regardless of whether it's good or not to help people try to make a buck in an automated fashion. So, like, how are they supposed to deal with this volume of stuff coming in when there's now, like, it's CNA's gone wild everywhere, and you've got this volume coming in and potentially even more volume coming out there too? Like, are CVEs even a really useful thing anymore if this is the way we're going to get them?
No, like, we've just come full circle. Like, why are we not using AI on the other side? If we're using AI to generate the CVEs, why is NIST not using AI to approve things for NVD and come up with all the fields?
Maybe that's what they're working on.
Yeah, maybe that's the way.
To that point, like, I think it's always a good thing that internal processes are being improved. It's just like it's been so sensationalized on Linux, or not Linux. Oh my goodness, LinkedIn, our new public marketplace, because it's basically like the Kate Middleton of LinkedIn, of security, right? We don't know anything, and so people will fill in the gaps with their own information. And that's why, like, just any kind of like timeline or like, hey, this is what we're doing, I'm just more surprised to not see that. But I am in favor of whatever is going on.
Until they release a very clearly photoshopped image of people toiling away at NVD at NIST, and you're like, wait, that's not really what's happening.
Because one of the sleeves is cut off in the wrong way. Okay, that's right. All right. We are not going to have time to dig into the tool time segment, so I'm just going to mention it briefly. There's this thing called certificate transparency logs. It's where, like, all the certs get logged so you can validate things, and we can have a somewhat solid encrypted system on the internet. I'm not going to rant about that now. I could rant more. There's a new project called Sunlight that's been put together by the Let's Encrypt folks, and I am covering it only today because I was going to introduce certificate transparency, but we ranted a bit too much in other places. So there's some deets on what certificate transparency is, and the logs and everything there. The cool thing about this is, like, before, and I didn't really read how they had their stuff set up before, but before today, or before yesterday, they had basically MySQL shards, and they kept sharding, then basically creating different sections of MySQL instances. But they ran into a problem where like MySQL has a 16 terabyte limit. And so like, but they hit that limit, at least in a test mode, but they regularly had like 11 terabyte shards for various parts of the certificate transparency process. And the new solution is stupid elegant. It's brilliant. It's fast. It uses like S3 like object storage, uses Merkle trees. It's completely brilliant. I am totally enamored with this. And I was going to talk a lot more about it, but I'm not. So read through some of these things. We might talk about it in a future one that's out there. But if you haven't heard about the Sunlight tech, definitely go there. If you haven't done anything with certificate transparency, actually, I want to just briefly talk to Emily about this. So I did not know this, but you're one of those. What are you guys? You're a CT what?
CNA.
No, you guys are in this. You guys are in the certificate transparency ecosystems.
We ingest them. We ingest CT logs.
But yeah, there's a name for that though. I was trying to be all fancy. I don't remember what the name is, but I did not know
either actually.
Yeah, but like you got called like big time out for that, and that's pretty cool. I mean, I knew you did that, but I didn't know that like you were all big time with that. That's actually pretty.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah. So I think people don't know this about us, but yeah, like if you want information about certificates from like lots of different sources, like come use Census certificate search, because there's a lot, and that's an understatement. There's billions of certificates there. You should go look at that.
We need to have you guys talk about that sometime in the future more.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's something that I didn't really work with a lot until I came here, and then I did for a while, and now I've forgotten everything I knew about it. But at the time, I was like, this is the most amazing thing in the world. Like, how certificates work is also just amazing. Can I just like say that? Because it's like technology is incredible. I don't know. I'm gonna stop now, but
well, no, you're not, because you're going to tell us like, so we're in the shameless self-promotion segment. So you have to tell us about your state of threatening report.
No, well, first I will say it's not actually called that. As you can see, if you see the URL, it's like the state of threat hunting report. So this is actually something that we did. Like some other folks in the company actually surveyed, I think it was over 200 folks who identify as threat hunters across North America and Europe, to kind of better understand like what are problems that they face, what are they dealing, what are challenges kind of like on the ground. And there's some cool findings in there, but one I'll call out that's relevant for today is around AI-based tooling. And so the vast majority of folks say that they do use AI-based tools to aid in their investigations over the last year. And about 75% of folks said that these tools are very helpful. So if you're not leveraging these tools, whether it's a Copilot, it's a ChatGPT, who knows, you might be missing out. I mean, we've used it on our team for just quick and dirty things. Like it's definitely really helpful. But this report contains insights about that, other things as well. So I'd say if you're curious about kind of what other hunters are experiencing and encountering in their day-to-day investigations, go give this a read. It's pretty interesting.
Very cool. You definitely should call it a threatening report next time around though. You just should do that. This next one, I'm going to just tease it up for everybody. And this is actually a really fun topic for me because I love looking at old vulnerabilities. And Kimber's might be doing some really cool stuff with that topic later this year. And so if you ever wonder what happens to vulnerabilities after they're forgotten by everybody, like it's out of the press, it's out of the blogger sphere, it's all whatever. So the labs team dug in and they did a really, really cool thing with CVE 2023-22527. It's an Atlassian Confluence one. And this is a great blog. It goes deep, it goes long. This is like, it's a really, really solid blog. And I just hope everyone goes and reads this if you want to find a little bit more about how all that stuff works. And we have a webinar coming up, The Future of Honeypots in an Age of Targeted Attacks. I believe if Lewis is still, I think Lewis is doing this one, if I'm not mistaken.
I think.
Yeah. And so this is gonna be great. And there's gonna be a report also coming with this one as well too. So stay tuned for that. But you're not gonna want to miss this content. A lot of really good historical views, historical info on honeypots, and a lot of good future state stuff on honeypots as well. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because you can't actually use it yet. But if you all remember, we talk about SIFT a little bit, and we actually did it today too. This is one of the ways that we triage millions of HTTP events every single day. And I threw together a really janky, horrible user interface around some of the data before, and it was good enough for everyone to get the idea of how to use it. And then our design team and our UX implementation team just took that, crumpled it up, threw it away. and made it beautiful. And this is one of the beautiful screens from it from the initial thing. And this is the I'm sorry, this is actually really beautiful. They did such a great job taking the spirit and implementing it in a very beautiful way. So thank you for doing that, folks. And I cannot wait till the world gets to start to see this and use this on your own GreyNoise sensors, no less.
Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, this is wow, this is beautiful. We have some tags. The team, as usual, kills it. And we keep saying it. One reason why they kill it is Sift is basically helping identify where the things are, and it does not do all the work for them by any stretch of the imagination. They still have to go afterwards. They still have to go and make sure that the tags are 100%. They still have to write the actual rules. Sift does a terrible job at that still right now. It's getting better, but it's still pretty bad.
There's a 2009 tag in there.
Yeah. Yeah, PHP admin. And the thing is, if you go to the Viz and you look up that PHP admin setup, it gets activity every single day. Like we backfilled it a couple of days. This is a regular occurrence that we're seeing. So much of these old vulns are getting yeah, Kimber, this is a great. I can't wait to hear your stuff later this year. I cannot wait to hear your talk. And we don't have time to show it, but we have some new internal heat maps going back a long ways. This is the top part of the Kev heat map that we have. It scrolls pretty far down. I just wanted to focus on this, mention this real quickly because, and if you go to the observable notebook that we aren't linking to because I forgot to put the link in, you can find it on the internet or just hit me up on Mastodon. There are some, there's the QNAP one is getting a lot of activity again. So I don't know what's going on with that. So what part of one of the QNAP Kevs is busting up pretty good, and there's another Realtek one that's also getting a big one. So I don't know what the attackers are doing for that, or why they're focusing on that again, but they are. So you definitely want to go take a look at that if you're interested in that. And we need to talk about Kev, but I think it's also pining for the fjords. Unless we could do a quick Kev check.
I checked. Nope.
Wow. So normally we would talk about it, so I just had to leave this page blank.
I hope they're okay.
Yeah, so if anyone has seen Sissa and Kev, if you could let us know, because we had to do the milk carton thing for them just because we don't know what's going on. And giving defenders a break, that's great. But are they pulling an NVD? Like, did they join forces with NVD and they're just on some kind of silent protest? Like, what's going on?
Did the Linux kernel finally get them?
Oh.
Awkward.
Or are they just upset that it's still not the year of the Linux desktop? Who knows?
Rip.
Yeah. Vulncheck, which we're gonna have to have on to talk about something. They have their own little Kev. And hopefully people, which we need to have you guys on, Patrick. Patrick, you need to come on and talk about that, one of the ones. Thank you for that. So we are at the end. And I think it's time to close out with the final question. Now, you guys got some extra prep time for these questions, like you actually had longer than normal for these. So I'm going to start with Himanja. Himanja, if you could have any fictional vehicle, any, and I need to do a quick check for everybody. Does writing, do animals count as vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so I don't want to make the rule, so I'll make sure I may get consensus. What would you choose?
Magic School Bus.
Oh, good answer.
Wow. Wow.
Enough said.
Yeah, like that is a mic drop moment. That's beautiful. Right. Kimber.
Bird suit.
Okay, fair enough. Flying's cool. Flying's definitely cool.
Exactly. Something that flies.
Emily.
A Pegasus, maybe.
Yeah, I could see that.
Malware?
You gotta ride. I did not know.
Gonna ride spyware. Yes. I thought about that.
I'm gonna say the Rocinante because the ship is a vehicle and it's the best ship ever made. Sorry, everybody else's ships out there. I could fly the Rossi for the rest of my life. It'd be beautiful. Cool. And actually, Overwatch, since you were the one who made this all possible. So actually took it more seriously. Optimus Prime. Hey, I like that. That's actually that because you get a friend and a vehicle. That's actually really cool. Or the USS Enterprise D from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Oh, I
like the specification of which Enterprise. I think that's very important.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
I'm stunned to know what he said. Batmobile.
I thought about it. That was my second choice answer, but I was like, no. Go with the mythical creature.
It was actually my second choice answer too.
Interesting.
Yeah. I may have 20 little Matchbox cars of the Batmobile around in the office. Yeah, a little bit. Proud. Cool. Well, again, go to all the platforms because you missed out on a lot of great discussion that was happening while we were having a discussion as well too. Oh, hold on. We got this one. And yes, Todd, the original Lincoln Continental Batmobile. Thank you very much. Yes. So Todd, I agree.
Specifications very important.
Yeah, it actually very is important. Go check out all that stuff. I'm actually trying to hoover up all these comments and put them into one location too, because there was some great stuff going on there. Thank you all for making time to come out to this day. Thank you all for listening and contributing, and join us again next week on the next Stormwatch. Take care, everybody.
Bye.